Welcome back to Nita Nae's Books, Author's Point of View. I am Nita Nae. I'm glad you're back. This is the month of May, and we have some new author interviews for you. My first guest on this month is Raudric C. Curtis. He is a new author, and he's a comic book creator. He is a business owner, a father, and fiance. Welcome, Raudric Curtis. So welcome, Raudric. You are a new author. You are a new, not really new comic book creator. So tell the people a little bit about you and what you got going on.
Well, I am a new author, and I am just entering the comic book creation business and of indie comics. I'm a longtime football coach and sports enthusiast and trainer, but I've always been into the arts ever since I was a kid. I was an illustrator. I can still do portraits very well, and chess and family man. But I've just delved into this writing, and I've had this story in my mind for years, and I have just developed a passion, understanding that I do have a talent for it, and this is my new venture. I'm just enjoying it, and I feel like I'm waking up every day doing what I love.
Oh, well, that's great because, we have to have a love for what we do, even though we have our challenges. But tell us a little bit about the new book that's coming out, summer of 2021. It's
Yes.
a 10 and, the Pharaoh versus Priest, the
Yeah.
rise of a 10. So give us a little bit of background of how that story came about and tell us some crux of what the people can you know look forward to when they read it.
Yes, yeah, awesome. So the name of the book is Pharaoh versus Priest, The Rise of Aten. And I got this idea from historical events, from the life and history of Nefertiti and her husband Akhenaten, and their son King Tut and their family. They had daughters that a lot of people, don't realize. And back in college, I actually did a short animation, stop motion animation on this concept.
Hmm.
I didn't really get African history until I got to college, right? It's,
Right.
very
Right.
surface African history,
Right.
Black history and African history in high school. So when I got to college and started taking history courses, and the bust of Nefertiti is a very famous piece of art and sculpture, and it recalled, back in my childhood when I would see pictures of that family, of Nefertiti and Akhenaten, and like, beauty shops or
Right.
barber shops and all these. It was a very iconic Black family that became infamous, and
Right.
kind of, their story and their history kind of got lost, and some people see them as negative influences, or some people
Right.
say
Right.
positive influences. So I just kind of took that vessel and added my imagination. And Aten is really Akhenaten.
Right.
uh,
Right. Okay.
Nefertune is really Nefertiti. And
Right.
so
Right.
I'm kind of loosely playing with these historical figures, but I added this rich, world of alchemy and
Right.
magic, and
Right.
ultimately it's a love story
Hmm.
of how their partnership and their love um, battled through, and they were very well remembered, even though uh, you know further dynasties kind of stepped on their accomplishments.
Hmm.
So I really want to highlight their power and their influence, and how the things they did brought light to the end of the Bronze Age was really a dark
Right,
time.
right. So tell us a little bit about how you got into the love of this artistry, comic books, and even the writing process because you're new to it. So tell the people a little bit about that process.
Yes, yes. So I was gonna make a comic book. I had made a short animation that I drew the figures for back in college. So what, 10, 15 years later, I said, I'm
Right.
gonna, as we're sitting at home during the pandemic, I said, I'm gonna make that comic.
Hmm.
And I reached out and found a really good artist, and we started making the comic. But the story needed to be written,
Right.
and I was going to actually pay somebody to ghostwrite it. I really didn't see myself as a writer or someone who can write a book until I started doing a lot of research and booktube. People in my family that have written books and self-published, and I got a little encouragement that said, somebody said, go ahead and just write it yourself. That's what I
Right.
did. I just sat down, and it took maybe about 8 to 12 days to write a rough manuscript of 125 pages.
Oh
And
yeah, you didn't sleep for real.
no, I was up early in the morning writing.
Right.
My kids, I might stop to go get my kids something to eat, or
Right.
stop to go do what we're doing for the family. And I'm right back on it because the mind, it was like a movie in my mind, and
Right.
I was just getting it out. It just came very naturally. Um, I allowed beta readers to kind of follow the progress, and they were giving me feedback, and everybody was just enjoying it. And
Oh wow.
it gave me confidence to just keep going and finish. And once it was done, I reached out to some freelance editors. I got one really strong, great value editor who did the editing is a whole different process. And,
Exactly. Right.
so I self-edited, revised, and then sent it to her.
Uh-huh.
And she really kind of shaped it and reworked it, to something clean. And I have a
Right.
publisher, Page Publishing,
Okay.
just got their edit back
hmm
and ready to move to the next stage
Okay,
of
good,
publishing.
good, 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 good. So in the sense of, tell us a little bit about, a little bit more about your writing process in regards to, when you sat down to write this, what was your thought? Was it just to get whatever came to your head onto the paper, or it was a process? Did you outline it, or were you a pantser like most of the times
Oh,
I am?
yeah, that's such a good question, because I did have to find my style and my way of doing it. And I'm an artist by
Right.
trade. I'm an art minor.
hmm
So I have to be very visual. So uh, I made this real elaborate, like, circle, that
Right,
had these
right.
different, where this character is going to develop, and this
hmm
story, and added these, plot points. So I did make a traditional, outline at first. I then
Okay.
convert that visual, like,
hmm
collage
hmm
into like a a traditional
Right, right, right.
outline, and something like that. So I just, I had the plot, the story, that it's always been a movie in my mind that I
Right,
can
right.
see whenever I kind of
Mhm,
close my eyes. So, um, a mixture of all those things, but I did have these plot points. I knew what every chapter was going to be about,
mhm.
just by name. But then I love just getting in there, and I don't
Right.
really know where the story's going to go until I'm following the protagonist's
Right.
perspective, like I'm actually him, going through the movie. So something's changed, and I take a lot of influence from my family. So if there's like
Mhm.
a conversation between him and Nefertune, I think about conversations that I've had with my fiance, and
Right.
it gives us this really authentic, like, I know this somebody's gonna believe this, because this
Right.
really this was really a
Right.
conversation that we had. So it's
Right.
not made up, and it really gives it a kind of a rich engagement for readers from
Mhm.
the feedback that I've gotten.
So in regards to the artistry, because I as the interviewer was able to see a lot of the artwork that went into, just the way the characters look. So how much influence did you provide the artists for those, and making sure that they look, they looked like you really wanted them to look?
Oh, wow, that's such a good question. I talk about this in depth on my podcast, about
hmm
how writers and artists in the world of comics
hmm
um, really develop a better product working together.
hmm
So yes, I had the character of Aten in my mind, and I feel like I was always seeing him through his eyes, and I couldn't really
Right.
picture
Mhm,
what he would look like.
mhm.
So I reached out to artists on Fervor first, and
Mhm, mhm.
that process was very like, give me the details, and I'm going to give you the character. And I really didn't like the character that came back to me.
Right.
So, but I'm just kind of learning the process. So I sent
Mhm,
another request out on Upwork,
mhm.
and the artist sent me like three different directions that the character could go.
Oh,
Like
wow.
very
Okay.
rough, just kind of shadow grayscale. Like it could be this way, or I can flesh out this idea, or this one. I saw one. I was like, that's it. See where
That's
that
okay.
character goes,
Mhm.
and he lined it, and I was he was like, if this is where it's at now, I can say, oh, that's cool. Add this
Mhm.
element. He needs to have a chain,
Right.
that has his motif, or
Right.
he needs to look more black, or you know what I mean,
Right.
like,
Right. Right. Got you.
hair or whatever.
Right.
And we really came down to the way Aten looks, and
Okay.
I saw the
Okay.
final result. I was like, that's my character. I can finish him.
Right. Right.
Everything
Right.
else, and we developed maybe 12 other characters that are in the book,
Right.
using that same process.
So tell us a little bit in regards. I know you talked about, you and your fiance kind of having conversations with family. Are there any characteristics of Roderick in uh Pharaoh versus Priest?
Yeah, I found even when I draw, like if I was just drawing a character, they'd always resemble me in some,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
if I wasn't like using a different reference,
Right.
they'd always resemble me. So I do feel like Aten, my first character has aspects of me, my
Right.
family, my father,
Mm-hmm.
my brothers,
Right.
that the best of them, as well
Right.
as the faults in us all,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that I think really makes the character very authentic, and is an expression of me, and in my life. And if I was acting, going through these events,
Right.
how would I speak to this person? How would I
Navigated.
react?
Right. Right.
And I think it's really hard to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and do that effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to take the history and the events and figure out, okay, how would I solve this problem?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, as really kind of the best, marker for how to, you know, create solutions for the
Right.
protagonist. So yes, there's a lot of me in there, but as well as
Okay.
others that
Okay.
I think are strong figures that I
Right.
think would make a
Right.
good character.
Right. So in regards to this process, how much research did you have to do on these characters, in the sense, because it is, part of Egypt, part of Africa. I mean, did you just did it just come from, because for me, like a lot of the writing that I do comes from like dreams that I may have. So tell us a little bit about your beginning process of how much research did you really have to do on these characters?
Well, I did a lot of initial research in college when I did the short
Hmm.
animation,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
researching the 18th dynasty of Amenhotep, uh,
Hmm.
which was really the last of that line,
Right.
before they hit an intermediate. So I did a ton of research from the first dynasty of Egypt, and Menes, all the way through the development, when I did that first short. And I really spent the last 15 years problem solving for this story.
Okay.
Talking about, with my brothers about, this character, uh, you know, where does this power come from? How, how does magic exist in a real world,
Right.
a situation? So really the story is based on alchemy. So everything's
Okay.
has this exchange, and is
Mhm.
really meant to be like a high science type
Okay.
of
Hmm.
effect,
Hmm.
not really a mystical, even though it
Right.
might have
Right.
that sense at times. I kind of
Hmm.
play loose with the abilities of alchemy, but there's always a connection to what's happening and how something could really, make that effect in real life. So researching, science, and uh, you know philosophy. It's not just the history of Egypt, but
Hmm.
Egyptian alchemy is really based on self-actualization, and the
Okay.
refinement of the
Okay.
soul, which
Hmm.
are themes that are in the book. So it's really, like I said, I had to start with this really like elaborate kind of, almost like a picture of what this story is, in
Right.
order to break it down into a line that kind of flows. So there's a lot of research I went done. I've been dreaming about this book in
Hmm.
movie
Hmm.
form for over 15 years, and
Oh
and
wow. Oh
I
wow.
think
Okay.
that's one of the reasons it flowed so well when I started writing.
Right. So we are going to transition into, this project is coming out summer 2021. Tell us a little bit about what's going to take place, and then give us a little bit about what other projects that you're doing as well.
Yes. So I started with the comic, and the book actually came out, and finished first.
Mm-hmm,
So the
mm-hmm,
comic,
mm-hmm.
the panel is very, very rich, beautiful artwork that takes a little time for the artist to complete, and I want them to take their time,
Right.
because it's just so good.
Mhm.
But the book is going to be in front of the comic release,
Okay.
and it's just great marketing. The
Mhm.
book and the story. Some people are readers that will go to comics. Some people comics that will read a
Go to
novelization. So
right.
I have kind of this feeding of the idea from one side to the other.
Mhm.
People are already teed up for the comic as I'm teasing,
Right.
that
Right.
world and that niche, as well as people that are just ready for the book, as I'm already doing pre-promotion,
Right.
and
Right.
things like that. So uh, that was the starting point for what I'm doing now, which
Okay.
is I started a comic book publishing company
Mm-hmm.
called Royal House Comics, uh, which is just a fantastic team of US based and international artists and writers. And our first flagship project is called Dambe, which
Okay.
is based on the West African boxing sport of called Dambe,
Mm-hmm.
which goes back all the way back to like ancient Egypt as an origin. And it's really rich in visual. They fight with one arm mostly, and they wrap up their hand with like this really stiff cord, and they
Oh
just
wow. Okay.
punch and
Mhm.
block, and there's a system to it. And I watched this BBC interview that said they used to use magic in the fights, and they had to ban it.
Oh
So
wow.
so
Wow.
I was like, what? They
Right.
This is already really cool. Imagine like
Mm-hmm,
a
mm-hmm.
boxing match, and somebody like
Right.
uses
Right.
some magic to, within. So I'm like, they ban magic. I'm gonna tell a story before they ban magic.
Right. Right.
And it was just really my first practice in sharing of an idea, because
Mhm.
I shared it with the group and some of my Nigerian writers, Toby and Toby Kingsley was like, yeah, man, that's big here. And like he
Right.
started adding
Right.
this
Mm-hmm.
really like authentic, take on what this shell that I already had.
Right.
Right. And I had a Nigerian artist who was like, I love Dambe, like I'm on it.
Right.
Like, and started sending me this,
Right.
these really cool characters.
Right.
All the characters are like, a mashup between like a boxer
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
they have like an animal motif, and they have a magic, that they can utilize. So it's just really cool tournament style series. And we just partnered with African Warriors FC, which is the main Nigerian affiliate. They're like UFC for that in Nigeria. And we
Oh,
just
okay.
partnered with them. They just reposted our artists'
Oh,
work,
wow.
and
That's
it just went
awesome.
viral like 2 days
Right.
ago.
Right. Right. Oh,
So it's
wow.
really growing, and it's just a great flagship project. And we have like 7 artists. So there's like 4 other
Okay.
projects under our umbrella that should be done in either a webtoon or a comic this year.
Oh, that is great. I mean, it's one thing to have, your own projects, but also to be able to network and get out there and work with other artists, and that's awesome. And I applaud you for that. In regards to what's going on with you, um tell us a little bit about the business side of everything. I know you started your Royal House Comics. What other things do you have going on with that?
Uh, that I bring my business experience to the industry of comics and writing. It's not the other way around.
Right.
So I actually cut my teeth out of college in business and sales and
Okay.
marketing.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I worked for this performance training facility that was just an empty building. And,
Right.
and I was the first employee that, basically had to go out into the streets and fill it up with athletes. So
Oh wow.
I know how to
Okay.
go into
Mm-hmm.
how to develop a market, right?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't really exist. When I
Right.
started in 07 at that job, people didn't know what performance training was. They didn't know that
Okay.
a high school athlete or a youth
Mm-hmm.
athlete can go get
Mm-hmm.
professional training in
Oh
some of these
wow. Okay.
facilities that you see as common now. Was
Mm-hmm.
real cutting edge when I first started that. So
Oh wow. Okay.
you have to will your easy up tent to this track meet or football game or youth baseball game, right? And
Right.
call local coaches and say, hey,
Mm-hmm.
we're here. So I'm very familiar with the business and marketing success, which
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
in honesty is kind of really lacking in indie comics
Okay.
and in the art
Okay.
world. You've heard
Mm-hmm.
that terms,
Right,
struggling
right,
artist or struggling
right.
writer. It's common because
Exactly.
yeah, they're so focused on the
Uh-huh.
form
Mm-hmm.
that the business is really an entirely separate skill set. People go to
Right.
school for college, masters
Mhm.
for business
Right.
development. So if you don't have that sense, it's good to connect with somebody that has that
Mhm.
sense. I brought that sense to my team that they really appreciated because I brought them a different way of doing things. And I think that's why I was able to attract some of the top talent really in the world.
Right.
And keep them, not just attract them, but keep them on a forward
Right.
trajectory.
Right.
I have 4 or 5 projects that are in some stage of development, and they're just a really strong group
Oh,
to work
that's
with.
awesome. That's great. So we're almost finished. So I have one more pertinent question. What does Roderick like to do outside of writing and doing comics?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, they say if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Right, right.
Outside of that passion, I love hanging out with my kids.
Mhm.
Like if they wake up and my day just like brightens up, they can be doing nothing, like just watching TV, and I'll just be staring at them,
Right,
marveling,
right,
or Dad, can we go outside? And I just jump up to that's what my
right,
dad used to do for us, just
right.
take us places and let us be kids. So I love family time. Football has been part of my life for a long time. So I feel like I'm doing multiple things that don't really feel like work as a
Right,
football
right, right,
coach,
right.
as a writer and comic developer, and hanging out with my family. I'm also a teacher.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm finishing up my credential program to be a teacher.
Okay.
Right. So I really am doing all the things that I want to do, and it's just really an enjoyable time in my life.
And that's a blessing. I want to thank Roger Curtis. One last thing, let the people know where they can see you, where they can reach you. I'll have the information as well as in the blog and in our interview. Um, Tell them about your podcast as well, and so that where they
Yes.
can find you.
Yes, I have a landing page that has everything there. A link to my social media and my podcast. It's my name, Raudric Curtis, RAUDRIC book dot gr8 number 8.com. So
Okay, great. Mhm.
RaudricCurtis.great.com or well, book.great.com.
So tell the people a little bit about what your podcast is all about, so they can come in
Well,
and listen to
I
you.
got into indie comics, and I just really was thrown off with how business works in indie comics.
Oh,
Just
okay,
it's a lot
okay.
of conflict between writers and artists, and
Mhm.
writers diminishing the artist role.
Right,
Writers will commission an artist and then just take that work and go run with it somewhere else, leaving the artist behind. Or
right.
artists are like charging really high commissions
Mhm.
and not telling anybody to bring their commission down, but not it's still work for time,
Right,
right?
right,
How many
exactly.
commissions,
Right.
even if you're
Mhm.
doing it for $500 and it takes you a week and a half to finish one commission, you're still exchanging time for money. So
Right,
this
right.
whole idea of co-ownership, sharing of royalties, and keeping the whole team through the whole process of the business, which
Right,
eventually is to make movies and
right,
to sell it to a studio where we all
right,
get
exactly,
out, right?
exactly.
Or
Mhm.
the residual income on a book that you produce one time,
Right.
being sold for years, 10,
Mhm,
15, 20
mhm.
years, that the artist just wanted $300 commission for,
Right.
right? So people, nobody was talking about what I'm talking about with my
Mhm,
team and
mhm.
educating them on the power of a royalty, on the
Right.
power of coming in and investing in
Mhm.
an actual business and doing this the
Right.
right way. Uh, um, so I put out a call on Facebook, and got a nucleus that came back to me, and I didn't follow anybody's negative comments. I didn't even
Mhm,
respond to them, and we just have a strong team. So my podcast is about that experience,
mhm.
about business and in indie comics, about developing really cool characters and stories. And it can be beneficial to people that are not just in comics but writing or
Right.
creativity, and how
Right.
to shape that passion into something that you can do long term as a business and not
Mm.
just a hobby.
Right. So thank you, Roger. I appreciate you. Just to let everybody know again, Pharaoh and Priest, Pharaoh versus Priest, The Rise of Aten is coming out. Well, the book is first, summer of 2021, and then the comic
Yes.
book, and then hopefully, you know, anime, movie, all of
Oh
that kind
yeah.
of good stuff.
Oh yeah. I have some short anime
Right,
already in
right,
production.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So all of that is coming out.
Thank
His
you.
information will be below in the description and in the blog that is available. So thank you again. Appreciate you. I'm gonna have you back when you have
Dambe. Oh yes, I
Dambe
would love
ready.
to come back and talk about Dambe. It's so
Definitely.
cool.
And just to let everybody know, you'll get a little sneak peek of Dambe. So
Yes. Yes. Thank you
all
so
right.
much. Thank you.
Thank you, Roderick, so much. Roderick Curtis, new author and comic book creator. Thank you again. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you too.
I really wanted to thank Roderick for this interview, for his openness. He's doing some great things. Look for him again in our description below. All the information will be in the blog as well. Here's a little sneak peek for Dambe, and see you next week. Bye.